Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 494 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, the main man himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. That is the truth. We're going to dive straight in then to the review part of the show as per usual. We're going to start here with a card that went down last Friday, April the 4th, at the York Hall, Bethnal Green, London, the mecca of boxing in the UK. I actually wound up going to this card, so I was sat ringside here. It was a massive, massive shame. On last week's show, I was literally talking and preaching about how I was so happy that Bradley Ray had been pulled in on just 3 days' notice, I believe it was, to jump in the main event against Daniel Blender dos Santos. And obviously it was going to be for the European title. When I got to the venue, as soon as I turned up outside York Hall, one of the other media guys said to me, "Did you hear the news?" I said, "What happened?" And then he went on to say that the main event had fallen through and the bout was cancelled pretty much in the dressing room just a few hours before the first bell was set to take place. So that was just devastating, man, especially for Bradley Ray, who, like I said on last week's show, had his fight fall through on the Beterbiev-Bivol undercard, and then, didn't have a fight date, didn't get paid, and then this was the next opportunity for him, and it's gone, just hours from the first bell, and he pretty much wasted his time coming to London, which would have probably took him about 4 hours in a car, and obviously he'd spent a few days prior in London for absolutely no reason. It was really good to actually meet Bradley Ray. I will say that. I was over the moon to finally meet him. He's been on the show a few times. He's a fantastic, fantastic guy. So I was really happy to just get a few moments with him, but obviously it was sad, really, because I could see the disappointment on his face, and I'm hoping that they can deliver him something big. We're hearing about a possible fight between him and Shakan Pitters for something big, and I think he deserves that at the very least. So I'm hoping that it's not too much messing around next time, and hopefully he gets a big fight and it is penciled in and properly rubber stamped for him, because he's been messed around too much now, and it's horrible, really. It really is horrible, especially when you know the guy. So all the best to him. I was devastated for him on Friday night, but great to meet him nonetheless. Also on that card, we saw Emma Dolan move to 8-0, a unanimous decision for her over 10-2s against Lauren Parker, now 10-2 with a draw. That one for the British and Commonwealth super flyweight titles. Good performance from Emma Dolan, very good performance. I think that she has a bright future. She's obviously beaten a few good names now in her early part of her career. Lauren Parker, fantastic ring walk, loved it. Got in the ring, looked the business, shadow boxing, but then when the fight began, I was just a little bit disappointed. I don't think she did herself any favours. I think at times she had absolutely no head movement, no defence, and was just being clocked too often. She'd sometimes just close her eyes and throw shots, and she didn't do a great job of blocking much, and she was tough, but she took a little bit of a beating. She was bloodied, and it was a good performance for Emma Dolan, but I did expect a little bit more from Lauren Parker. But also on the card, we saw Hughie Fury move to 30 wins. He's got 3 losses, but it was a TKO victory for him against Dan Garber, now 9-5. Garber down in the 5th round from a left hook to the body, and like I say, down and out with the TKO in the end. I'm going to keep it short and sweet on Hughie Fury. Obviously, we need to see him right back in with the bigger names in the division. I do feel like for years and years we've heard Hughie Fury, he's a baby, he's young, he's still learning this and that, and slowly but surely you look at him now. I think he's 30 now, and no clear pathway back to, you know, the top 10, top 15. So, you know, there's no lack of names there, but it's just a case of, can the fights happen? I feel like his window to make a big splash in terms of getting a potential world title shot again, you know, are looking quite slim. The window is very short, I think, for him. You know, we got Kubrat Pulev right now, a champion of the world. They boxed. Did they box? Yeah, did they box? Eddie, they boxed before, didn't they? Pulev and Hughie Fury?
I'm almost sure they did. I can't remember.
Yeah,
no,
do you know what? Off the top of my head, I'm not going to check it, but off the top of my head, I think that... I know he boxed... No, he didn't box Povetkin, did he?
Hughie?
Yeah.
Nah,
he didn't box
I don't
Povetkin,
think so.
It was one of the P's. It was one of the P's. So I'm sure it was Pulev, and I think he got cut in that fight, and I think it was in Bulgaria.
Well, he fought Parker too.
Yes. I meant one of the European P's.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
For some reason, it's just there in my head. I know he obviously boxed Parker, but...
yeah, I think it was Pulev, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he got cut in the fight, and it hampered him. But anyway, it is what it is. You know, if he were to rematch Pulev now, who is a current belt holder, I would favour Hughie Fury, I think. So, again, it needs to happen for him pretty soon, but I can't see a clear pathway back. You've got other British guys now that have overtook him, like your Fabio Wardleys and people like that. You've still got Anthony Joshua knocking about. You've got Dubois, who obviously turned pro after Hughie Fury. He's right to the top of the division now. So he's been overtook by a few of these guys, and yeah, he's lost a lot of I think decent years, which is a shame, but all the best to him. We're going to move now to the Barry's Arena in Kazakhstan over here. This one was on the Saturday, live on ESPN Plus, not shown in the UK, but we had Otabek Kolmatov move to 13-1, a successful victory, a successful ring outing for him, a return to winning ways after losing to Raymond Ford. He hadn't boxed since then, which is mental. Lost to Raymond Ford in a fight he was winning, got stopped in the final round. Raymond Ford went on to box Nick Ball and lost. Nick Ball then defended the title twice successfully, and Raymond Ford, I think, has boxed once since losing to Ball and has his second fight this weekend. And all the while, Otabek Kolmatov has not boxed at all, but he did finally return to the ring. Yeah, like I say, a TKO in the 8th round against Jason Canoy, who's now 30-13 with 2 draws. That was, if I'm not mistaken, an 8-round fight, so I believe he got him out in the final round. We also saw on that card Batizan Jukambayev move to 24-1, a wide unanimous decision in the end over the UK's Kane Gardner, now 17-5. Yeah, that one for the WBA Continental Gold title, if I'm not mistaken. Credit to Gardner, who, you know, showed his toughness, hung in there, but like I say, was dominated really. Also on the card, we had Bakodir Jalalov go to 15-0. I believe that's the first time he's gone the distance. His opponent, Ihor Shevazutsky, now 12-3. We'd seen him before, and we'd seen him stopped before. So most people felt that Jalilov, being this huge puncher, would be able to go in there and pretty much wipe the floor with him, really, because, like I say, been stopped in the past to Martin Bakole in 3 rounds. And his other loss, funny enough, was to Kubrat Pulev back in March of 2024. So, yeah, that's not a fantastic look. But yeah, went in there and ended up going 10 rounds with him. He did have Shevazutsky down in the 3rd round, but wasn't really able to capitalise. And he did actually, on a couple of judges' scorecards, lose a couple of rounds, which is not a good look for Jalilov. A lot of people very frustrated with him and his performance, and also his career path at the moment. We also had Sultan Zorbek move to 20-0. This one was for the vacant IBF Intercontinental Super Featherweight title. A victory here against Azinga Fuzili, now 18-3. That one I picked to be quite a good fight on paper going in. And then obviously the main event, Janibek Alimkunala is now 17-0, a TKO for him in the 5th there for the IBF and WBO middleweight world titles against a guy who had a very hard name to pronounce, and it's probably a name we're not going to hear very often in the future. I'm going to give it one last crack. He's lost his O. He's now 14-1. It is Annual Ngamisengu. Probably saying it wrong. Short and sweet, Eddie. A brutal knockout in the end for Janibek. I mean, credit to his opponent for actually, I suppose, staying awake during that massive left hook that Janibek threw. But he was, head up in the air. I think it was a left hook. Chin up in the air, and he got caught massively with it. But the referee did the right thing to stop that fight for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Something that nasty. At that point, even if a guy attempts to get up, you know what I mean? A lot of times, obviously, the legs aren't going to be under him. Not like you would think, especially to continue. So, yeah. Anytime you get a real heavy knockout, you got to look at the guy's eyes. You know, look at his whether he's focusing on anything, whether he can see any. I can just imagine getting hit like that where his head snapped back, his chin up in the air. That was a really ugly looking knockout. Like, it almost like he was gonna decapitate him. You know what I mean? So in a situation like that, 9 times out of 10, the refs are gonna stop the fight, because it's like you ever see a guy get hit with a shot and go down and stiffen up. Almost 10 times out of 10, you're not gonna see the ref let them go, even if for whatever reason they're able to stand back up. It's just extremely unlikely. So those real nasty knockouts like that, or knockdowns like that, are typically going to be waved off, which, in any case, I think is, to the betterment for the fighter, man. Live the fight another day. You put somebody back in after something like that, he's heavily concussed. Things can just, go get worse from there. So, exciting knockout, exciting fight up to the point, I guess. But you had to do the right thing, and I think the ref did.
Oh, for sure. We're going to move on now then to this one. It went down at the Co-op Live Arena in Manchester, Lancashire, United Kingdom. This one was live on DAZN, Frank Warren's first Queensbury show on DAZN. Let's touch on the undercard. We had the pro debut of Delicious Ori, who some people have accidentally called Delicious Oreo, which I think is fantastic. Obviously, pro debut for him, the 2024 Olympian. He was able to pick up a points win over 4 rounds against Milos Veletic, who's now 3-8. Delicious Ori, I think, really tried to impress and fell a little bit short, if I'm going to be totally honest. I think sometimes he was a little bit too eager and sometimes a little bit too predictable. And all in all, I'm not criticising the guy, but I think when you're an Olympian, you turn pro, you're a heavyweight, people are expecting, a nice flashy knockout. He didn't box a guy who offered too much, and he didn't deliver on the knockout. So we'll have to stay tuned to him. I think he's a skillful guy. I think he moves very well for a guy his size and his weight. And obviously, I think big punching is not really part of his game. So again, it's going to be interesting to see this journey unfold. He looks a hell of a lot older than what he is, by the way. I think he's about 27 years old. Looks a very old 27. It'd be interesting to see if he's got Cuban blood in him. We're going to move up the card once again. We had Royston Barney-Smith move to 14-0. A points win for him over 8 rounds against Cesar Paredes, now 18-17 with a draw. I think they do need to step Royston up. I think he's coming through these tests quite easy, quite unscathed, and I don't really feel like they actually are tests at this point. I feel like he's winning them, like I say, relatively easy, and I would like to see him in with like a fellow British fighter who's at the same sort of level, and just see where he's at, because I don't think we're seeing too much when he's boxing these South American fighters. It's hard to tell, how good he really is, because you can't really gauge in terms of the measuring stick stuff. But yeah, a points win for him over 8. We also had return to the ring for Mark Chamberlain. He's now 17-1. A points win for him over 8 against Miguel Scoringi, who's now 8-5. Again, Mark Chamberlain expected to go in there and take care of business inside the distance, but that one wasn't to be. It ended up going 8 rounds, which is quite surprising. We also had Jack Rafferty move to 26-0, a TKO for him in the 5th against Corey O'Regan, who loses his O. He's now 14-1. That one for the Commonwealth Super Lightweight title. O'Regan down in the 3rd, and in the end it was his corner who threw the towel in the 5th. Really good performance, really fun fight as well from Jack Rafferty. Jack Rafferty, in fact, I'm going to start with Corey O'Regan. Corey O'Regan seemed to be quite a tidy fighter, quite a tidy boxer, and I liked what he was doing. It was clever work early on, and he had an argument of nicking a couple of the rounds. Jack Rafferty, though, started to really amp up the pressure, and obviously that punch that he got caught with, O'Regan got caught with in the 3rd round, that put him down, was a massive shot. It was, I'd say, a little bit of inexperience maybe from O'Regan. He didn't quite have his guard up when they were, I think it was just a moment on the inside where I think the referee had called break and they separated themselves, but like I say, Rafferty came with a big shot quite quickly, and O'Regan wasn't expecting it, didn't see the shot coming, it hurt him, he went down, and like I say, got back up, but showed a hell of a lot of character to actually get back up, because it was a massive shot. He was definitely hurt, but he did well to weather the storm and get through the round. Then he comes out, like I say, for the 4th round, and in that round, again, he actually had decent moments in it. He seemed like his recovery skills were quite impressive. But what I was really quite impressed with from Jack Rafferty is he obviously had hurt O'Regan to the head. He'd hurt him with a big shot upstairs, and then decided to almost exclusively smash the body of O'Regan. Like, he almost exclusively just targeted that body. And I thought that was quite impressive. He didn't allow himself to get caught into, head hunting. He actually went for the body and really put it on O'Regan. And like I say, was battering his body. And in the end, in the 5th round, it was pretty much the punishment that he was taking to the body that his own corner threw the towel in. And again, you don't see that too often. Corners throwing towels in due to body shot damage. You don't really see that too often. Corey O'Regan, to his credit, wanted to carry on. He looked like he was quite annoyed initially with the towel coming in, but it was the right decision. I wouldn't mind seeing him again, but as for Jack Rafferty, I think he saw a little bit of a golden opportunity in that fight, and he took it with both hands. And it was a fun fight while it lasted. It was, and it's a great win for him. He moves on once again. We also had on that card, this one's going to be controversial, David Adelaide moved to 14-1. Very controversial. A TKO for him in the 6th round against Jamie TKV, now 8-2. That one for the vacant British heavyweight title. Jamie TKV down twice in the 6th round. I favoured Adelaide quite heavily going in, especially with the stuff in the build-up. I felt that Adelaide seemed to have got inside Jamie's head, and Adelaide seemed like he was coming at him with real, like, almost bully energy. And I thought to myself, yeah, he kind of knows something that maybe we don't know about Jamie TKV. He seems supremely confident, and I really bought into it. But anyway, Jamie TKV, to his credit, even though he's, he doesn't look the quickest, when you look at him, you don't expect him to have quick hands, but he was able to fire out the jab quite nice and quickly. It was sharp. I think his judge of distance was quite on point the other night, and he was definitely nicking rounds, definitely nicking rounds. And obviously, again, it's been talked about, and I don't want to spend too long on it, and especially if you didn't see it, Eddie, which you didn't, but the referee calls break, and I think he even calls break twice, and then kind of pulls the arms away from Jamie TKV, because he was getting onto him a lot for holding, which I felt was a bit unfair. I felt the referee as well from the get-go was making it all about himself. He kept telling them off and getting involved. He got himself way too involved when he didn't need to. But like I say, he decides to call break, and he says it out loud very clearly, and the pair break, and literally David Adelaide hits Jamie TKV with a huge shot on the break, completely wrong, and Jamie TKV goes down. He's in all sorts of trouble. He barely makes the count, and then when he does get back up to his feet, Adelaide steams into him and gets the stoppage. And like I say, it was a fight that Adelaide was definitely behind in, and it felt very dirty. I am just more frustrated with the referee, because I think that he did not at any point have control of that fight the other night. And I looked at the referee as well. I looked on his box rec just to see, like, I didn't recognise him initially. I thought to myself, who is this guy? He's not one of the usual referees that we see in these, these kind of big shows, like in the UK, Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren cards. I don't really see him too often. And it looks like, really and truly, for the most part, he is, refereeing lower level fights. The guy's name's Ron Kearney, and I felt he was pretty awful. He's been a judge for 9 years. He's been in charge of 319 fights, so he's obviously got quite a bit of experience, to be honest with him. But yeah, he had no control the other night. Maybe the event was just too big for him or something, but it was a disgrace. I think his performance was extremely dangerous. He's got a fighter knocked out who was winning a fight. He didn't seem like, the way he was acting, he didn't seem like he felt he did anything wrong. I'm hoping that, we don't hear from officials, which is another terrible thing about boxing. You don't hear anything from referees or judges that put in an awful night's work, and that is what this was. He's ruined Jamie TKV here. And in the build-up, again, David Adelaide had made reference to Jamie TKV, saying that Jamie TKV's manager had apparently said that the phone doesn't ring for him. Well, the phone's definitely not going to be ringing for him now, because he will be in a very, very tough spot now because of that refereeing error. So yeah, again, I don't want to go in too hard, but I felt the referee was disgraceful, made it all about himself, made countless mistakes, and has potentially caused a hell of a lot of damage to Jamie TKV outside the ring. So yeah, they're trying to go to the British Boxing Board of Control to try and appeal the outcome of the fight, to have it overturned, to turn it into a no contest. I personally think it should be turned into a no contest. The corner as well of Jamie TKV straight away right in the referee's face saying, "You called break," which was 100% right, and the referee seemed to just ignore it. So something needs to be done there. I think the pair showed good sportsmanship afterwards. Jamie TKV could have said a hell of a lot more in his post-fight interview than he did. I understand it's classy that he didn't, but I would have liked to have seen him go a bit over the top with it. David Adelaide handled himself quite well as well, so hats off to him, but I don't like the way the fight ended. yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on it. You have tried to jump in a couple of times, Eddie, so I'm assuming you may have seen something.
I seen that actually. The sequence where he caught him on the break. And I was wondering when I looked at it why it was not like he was not given 5 minutes or whatever, and he counted. I'm like, oh shit, okay. I guess it wasn't like the Joe Cortez situation with Mayweather and Ortiz, right? That he didn't say stop or anything like that. He had basically said fight, but he was apologizing, and Floyd took that opportunity to land a shot. This was a situation where the referee was standing in between them and said, hey, break. The guy throws a shot, clearly punching off the break, which should have either got a warning or maybe a mandatory point taken off because it was deliberate, right? And then the other guy should have been given 5 minutes to see if he can continue. That didn't happen at all. He counted like it was a part of a part of the job, and it's just unfortunate for him. But I seen something with this guy at the time that they were saying it. He looked like he turned his head and was like saying something to his corner or saying something to somebody. Like he turned his head, and then as he, obviously he's thinking, the ref said break or whatever. That he got a split second to make a little comment or whatever it was he was doing. If I'm not mistaken, he turns his right around right into that shot and boom, it just ends the fight. And it's just really. And I also saw the exchange, one of the exchanges they had too, where they were going at each other. Well, it seemed like David Adelaide was going at this guy pretty hard. And I forget what he called him. I can't remember, but I was watching him like, I don't know if they were walking from the press conference or walking to it. I can't remember. But, yeah, he was definitely, it seemed like he was trying to bully him. And I guess that shot on the break was another bully tactic. But I guess in this case, it worked because they didn't call it a foul and they actually got the stoppage. So, yeah, things like this, I agree, Joe. This 100% should be a no contest. And it should have him run it back. Because I don't think that the fight, I think the way the fight was going, from what I understand, he was being outboxed. And to win a fight on that, as David Adelaide, I wouldn't even want the win like that, to be honest. You know what I mean? Because people are going to always look at, oh, you were getting beat and you just landed a dirty shot and the ref just, gave it to you. So, I would want to earn it, so it's an unfortunate situation. It's really unfortunate for both fighters, but definitely Jamie TKV takes the worst of this whole deal unless they change it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they do change it. And yeah, again, there's people that like to say protect yourself at all times and all that, and I understand all that, but there's times where you're not allowed to throw a punch, like the referee's calling break. I don't know. I don't like the way. That's not a cover-up for what David Adelaide did. But again, I think most of the blame's on the referee and not so much David Adelaide. I think the pair were both at it throughout the fight. There was a clip that Adam Booth posted on Twitter. Adam Booth, being the trainer of David Adelaide, posted a video, I think the next day, of Jamie TKV hitting Fabio Wardley, hitting David Adelaide on the break. But it wasn't with like a massive, fight-ending shot. So I understand the offences are the same, but he really went for it with that shot, and it completely turned the fight on its head. So I didn't like to see that. We're going to move on then to this one here. It went down at the Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Let's touch on the undercard. We had last week's guest, Troy Williamson from the UK, moved to 20-4 with a draw. He lost a unanimous decision over 10 rounds to Jahai Tucker, now 14-1 with a draw. Troy Williamson down in rounds 2 and rounds 8. Sort of down. The first knockdown in the second round was ruled a slip initially by the referee, and then they went back and analysed the knockdown between rounds, as they do sometimes in Vegas, and they overturned it and called it a knockdown. And the quote-unquote knockdown in the 8th round was when Troy Williamson went, he got hit with a shot and kind of fell back into the ropes, and the referee decided that if the ropes weren't there, he would have probably fell to the ground, so that was called a knockdown. So both knockdowns were a little bit controversial. But, look, Jahai Tucker won the fight, but I didn't agree with the scorecards at all. I felt that they were way too wide, even with the 2 knockdowns. I think in the end, the judges gave Troy Williamson like 1 round or something like that. I think that's just a disgrace, in all honesty. Jahai Tucker thinks he's a hell of a lot better than he is, which I can't quite believe. He's already tasted defeat, and he's already racked up a draw as well. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as he thinks he is. I think he relies a hell of a lot on his athleticism, which is his best asset by far. And I felt in the fight he was being outworked at times by Troy Williamson, who was pouring the pressure on him and actually pushing him back. And Jahai Tucker was fighting in bursts. And yeah, when he does fight in bursts, he does look flashy and it's eye-catching, but it wasn't enough in my opinion. But I think the judges were just falling in love with that. But yeah, he'd fight in bursts, go for a little bit of a walk. I didn't think he did enough sometimes to win some of them rounds. But yeah, I also didn't like Jahai Tucker's dad. He was a real loudmouth in the corner. They had in the stream that I was watching it on, they had a mic in both corners instead of commentary, so I could hear exactly everything that was being said in both corners. You could hardly hear a thing from Troy Williamson's corner, and you couldn't get through 5 seconds without Jahai Tucker's dad bellowing things into the ring. They were talking to each other at times. There was one time where he was landing jabs on Troy Williamson, and the dad's counting them 1, 2, 3. I think he got up to about 13 or 14. I just hate stuff like that. I really hate things like that. I'm not a fan of dads in boxing, in all honesty, that again want to make a little bit of it about them. I like dads who just kind of sit back and don't get too involved. I really don't like dads that get too involved. I'm not a fan at all of Bill Haney and Angel Garcia and these guys. I can't stand these guys. But yeah, I didn't like that at all. I feel like Jahai Tucker was being lit up a little bit at times, honestly, and I feel like he is a knockout waiting to happen. He throws these big wide hooks. Like I say, he relies on his athleticism, but he throws these big wide hooks like he's Roy Jones Jr. And he's got a real ignorance about him, a real arrogance. And yeah, I really don't want to be critical here, because this could come across completely the wrong way. But he kind of reminds me a little bit of Anthony Yarde and Tunde Ajayi, in terms of him and his dad, because Anthony Yarde, well, not so much Anthony Yarde, but there was that rumour that he doesn't spar, which was complete and utter nonsense, by the way, but so many people lapped it up and believed it, and yeah, that's not the case at all. Of course, Anthony Yarde spars, but a lot of people felt, oh my god, he doesn't even spar. He thinks he's too good. He thinks he doesn't need to spar. He's boxing Kovalev, and he thinks he can just go into that fight without even sparring anyone. People were losing their minds. It was just a bit of cheekiness from the pair of them. But again, mainly Tunde Ajayi, who does like to play a few games. He's a funny character. I like him a lot. I saw him at York Hall actually on Friday night. It was good to see him. But they do have a little bit of kind of arrogance, like they know best, and yeah, Jahai Tucker seems to have that, but obviously, hasn't shown that he's on that kind of level just yet. So I think they need to calm down a little bit there. Moving up the card, we did see Abdullah Mason move to 18-0. He was able to get the retirement win against Carlos Ornelas, now 28-5. That one for the vacant NABF and vacant WBO, NABO lightweight titles. Ornelas down in the 2nd, the 4th and the 6th rounds. Like I say, he didn't come out for round 7. Yeah, he actually showed a lot of toughness. I'll be honest, he kept getting knocked down, and you thought that the end was close, but then get back up, and he showed a lot of heart, to be honest with you. He certainly earned his paycheck. We also saw Lindolfo Delgado move to 23-0, a majority decision. Close fight against Elvis Rodriguez, now 17-2 with a draw. That one for the WBO Latino super lightweight title. But the main event, Eddie, I am going to come to you. Richard Torres, now 13-0, a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Guido Vianello, who is now 13-3 with a draw. I've just realised that we didn't mention the Joe Joyce fight, so we'll have to go back to that in a minute. But the reason why that crossed my mind is because there were two heavyweight fights that were headlining in two different countries, and in both fights I did not think we'd hear the final bell, but actually we did end up hearing the final bell in both of them. This one was one of them, of course, for the IBF North American and the NABF and the WBO NABO heavyweight titles. All belts were vacant. Guido Vianello deducted a point in the second round for holding. Again, I thought the referee was a total clown. I just felt he was really on Vianello's case. Aside from the holding, which there was quite a bit of holding, but I do think at times Torres was holding as well. But the referee never, ever once did he tell Torres off. It was always Vianello's fault when they were actually in a clinch. It always seemed to be his fault. But yeah, obviously Vianello at times was holding a little bit. He didn't want to fight, too much on the inside with Torres, who, like we say, is 6'2" southpaw, 4 inches shorter, but he's so lethal on the inside, and he can bang super, super hard with both hands. So yeah, the referee did, I think, go a little bit over the top, taking a point away in just the second round. It didn't need it. But again, aside from the clinching throughout the contest, we had some really, really juicy moments. I think it was the 8th round where Vianello got hit with a massive shot and showed that great chin that he possesses. But yeah, it was a real learning fight for Richard Torres, but of course he won unanimously in the end, and he was the rightful winner in a massive, massive step up.
Yeah, good fight. From what I saw, it was obviously a really good fight. He was definitely tested in ways. He got some bruising. he got hit with some decent shots, and it seemed to be like Vianello's jab was doing well at times in the fight. But it's kind of to what you would expect. You know what I mean? If you're a backer of Torres, you would have kind of expected him to win the fight that way. You know what I mean? Like coming forward, obviously, landing those big shots here and there. But obviously, Vianello has a very, very good chin, because the shot that he got hit with, I think that was the 8th round, man, it looked as if he was going to go down. And he probably, I don't want to say he was going to go down, but he got kind of turned around a little bit, or Torres kind of got turned around. I can't remember how. I'm kind of like losing how the situation happened. But they kind of got clinched together again after that moment. But man, that was a hell of a shot. And I would think in that case, a lot of other guys might have gone down, because that was one hell of a shot, and it was clean too. But like I said, all in all, good fight, exciting fight, what I expected, but not 100% expected to go to distance. I mean, we know that Vianello had a good chin, and he was a tough guy, and it was a big step up and everything for Torres, but I still kind of figured either, Torres was, would probably stop him, mid to late rounds, maybe, if he caught him something super nice early, but I would think mid to late rounds, more to the mid rounds. And that was pretty much what my pick would have been, but to see him go to distance, I mean, it's just like it's just like you say, you can expect whatever you want to expect in boxing, but it's not necessarily going to be what happens. You know what I'm saying? Boxing is the theater of the unexpected, and it proves it every time.
It sure is, and we're going to now go back to Manchester just briefly. Like I say, Joe Joyce now 16-4. He loses a unanimous decision to Filip Hrgović, now 18-1. That one for the vacant WBO International Heavyweight title. Hrgović cut over his left eye in the first round. They did a really good job with that eye in the corner. because it was a bad cut. Yeah, I mean, look, Joe Joyce came in at 275 pounds, so he had lost about 10 pounds, which was a good sign, and he had probably put in the best performance of his last 3 or 4 fights. So for me, it just echoes the point I made on last week's show where I said he needs to lose about 30 pounds. We saw him shed 10. He looked a lot better than he did up at 280 plus for his last 3 fights in a row, and we need to see him drop down even more weight. Hrgovic is a good fighter, I think, and Hrgovic in the Daniel Dubois fight was cut on his eye and seemed to swallow it a little bit, went into a bit of a shell, and, you know, people were questioning his heart. Here, he gets cut in the first round, and he's able to come back, maybe because he'd learnt from that Dubois fight, and he didn't really let the eye bother him too much, but like I say, they did a great job with it in the corner, a way better job than they did with it in the Dubois fight. So there's a few things to look at there, but again, losing to Hrgovic on points is not a bad thing. I think Hrgovic, like I say, is a very good fighter. He was favourite against Daniel Dubois, and we know what happened there. Joyce showed me something in that fight. He showed me a few flashes of the old juggernaut Joe Joyce, where he was able to, you know, not look kind of, not exhausted, but not look really flat in the last few rounds. I know it was only a 10-rounder instead of a 12, but he looked quite energised in the final couple of rounds still. And that's the Joe Joyce that I remember at 250 pounds and things like that. So, yeah, you know, he did take a lot of big shots, as he seems to always do, so that's nothing new. People are calling for him to retire off the back of that performance. I think that's just a little bit harsh, and trust me, if I felt he should retire, I'd be saying it. It wasn't anything unusual, this fight here. If this happened maybe 3, 4, 5 fights ago, no one would be saying for him to retire. This was a typical Joyce performance. He got hit a lot, he dished out a lot of punishment as well. He came on strong and seemed to have quite a bit left in the tank in the second half of the fight, but he lost to a good fighter in Hrgovic. I honestly can't see too much bad in it, but of course we've seen him in the meantime get stopped twice by Zhilei Zhang, get beat by Derek Chisora, and barely get through one fight he had against another guy. I can't remember who it was now. It was in Cash Ali in Birmingham. So yeah, that wasn't a good performance there. So he's looked really awful, but I really think it was down to the weight. I'd like to see him shed a few more pounds, and I'd like to see him fight again. I do still think that based on the other night, again, I looked at it quite positively, but a lot of people have took it very negatively. I look at it and think he could still, you know, like, he could still beat some decent fighters based off that the other night. I think that, you know, he definitely offers something that not many fighters offer in the heavyweight division. He's got something. He's going to be able to test guys and show them something they haven't seen before. And I think that, you know, like I've said a few times here, I don't want to repeat myself, but losing to Hrgovic is not a terrible thing. Hrgovic is a very good fighter. A lot of people unfairly writ him off because he lost to Dubois, and then look what Dubois went on to do after that. So I think it's very harsh. But yeah, a lot of people call him for Joyce to retire. I don't want Joyce to go into a bit of a hole now and start, you know, not living the life again like I've heard in the past. He does really, you know, stop living the life in between fights and things like that. I hope he stays positive and stays in the gym and, you know, trains harder if he does want to continue. And if he just sheds a little bit more weight, I honestly think he could be back to, you know, maybe not what he once was, because he has took quite a bit of punishment since we last saw him looking that decent. But I feel like he could still do some things. I wouldn't mind. This could sound mad, but I wouldn't mind him maybe getting rid of 20 more pounds, maybe having a nice sort of easy comeback win, against someone lower level and then jumping in with someone who also has question marks over what they have left, like an Anthony Joshua. We're probably not going to see it, but honestly, that's a fight I would not mind seeing. We must move on because we're giving it way too much time here, or I am, because it's just me talking about that one. We're going to move now to the final card to mention. It went down on Sunday, April the 6th at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre in Broadmeadow, New South Wales, Australia. This one was live on Amazon Prime Video. We had main event Tim Tszyu move to 25-2. A nice successful return to the ring for him. A TKO in the fourth against Joey Spencer, now 19-2 there. That one for the vacant WBO Intercontinental Super Welterweight title. The corner of Joey Spencer threw the towel in that fourth round. It was an entertaining fight actually, and Tim Tszyu did look pretty good. When he got him hurt in that fourth round, though, that was a hell of a finish. Like, he just turned up the pressure. Joey Spencer, I don't think, threw a punch for about 30 of Tim Tszyu's shots. Tim Tszyu was just swarming him. Looked really impressive. It was a really good finish. And, Joey Spencer just not throwing back. Tim Tszyu looking brilliant. If you just watch the stoppage of that fight, he looks really, really good. The towel comes in, he can't really argue with it, Joey Spencer, and it's a good bounce back win there for Tim Tszyu. Hopefully we see him back in the mix, which I wouldn't mind that happening in the very near future. That, though, brings the review part to a close. It's now time to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated welterweight prospect. It is, of course, Mr. Elliot Whale. Elliot, welcome back on the show, mate.
Yes, mate. Happy to be back on.
It's always a pleasure. I am always good when speaking with you, Elliot. That is the truth. We last spoke back in September. It's always good to check in with you. How have things been?
Yeah, mate. To be honest, they've been all right since my fight in September. Obviously, I went on holiday. We took the kids on holiday. Then we come back in the gym because there was like suspected fight news. Then that one fell through. So I was back home for like 10 days and I got another call. Then I'm back in. This is my fourth fight now that I've come back for. 3 of them fell through, but this one that I'm fighting on next Sunday is actually coming off. So yeah, it's been a bit mentally draining, you know what I mean? But now I'm happy that I've got a fight date and I'm back at.
So to confirm, that's 4 fights since September. This is the 4th one.
This is the 4th one, but obviously the 3 didn't happen, you know what I mean? So this one's actually happening now. So yeah, I've been in the gym. I've been non-stop in the gym. Obviously, when I find out that the fights are off or not going to happen, I sort of go home for like a week or 2 weeks max. Then I'm straight back up here because obviously we think we're fighting again. But yeah, this one I was going to fight Feb 1st. That one fell through. Then obviously I had another couple of weeks at home. Then we were straight back in for this fight. So yeah.
Boy, oh boy, what a crazy time. I do feel though that, you know, you're slowly but surely becoming a bigger name amongst the casual fans, maybe. I have seen your name sort of mentioned more and more over social media in recent months, Elliot.
Yeah, I have as well, to be fair. Like, obviously, I think it's only right anyway, you know what I mean? I don't pipe up too much. I don't try and play this sort of character, you know what I mean, on social media. I just get in the ring and fight, and I'm willing to fight anyone, do you know what I mean? And I feel like I've got a fan-friendly style. I bring the heat. I always want to knock people out. And I think where I've been so active when I first come back and moved to the Midlands and I had quite a lot of fights quite quickly, I think people have been able to seen that sort of jumping on the bandwagon, you know what I mean? So it's good to get the backing of the casual fans that I don't even know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, man. It's a fantastic thing. Let's talk about this upcoming fight. As you say, it's penciled in, thankfully, April the 20th in Birmingham at the Resorts World Arena against Lucas Ballingall. Elliot, is this the best opponent you'd have shared a pro ring with?
Obviously, I can't say that until after the fight, you know what I mean? But I'm taking it as that. I think on paper it is, because obviously he's been crying out for opportunities and no one really wants to fight him either, you know what I mean? And now he's got his chance to fight on the big show and the big stage. I think he's going to be hungry and he's going to come to win, obviously, and that's what I think makes this fight dangerous, you know? So I've got to be switched on and just do what I do.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really fun fight with Casey Benjamin. It almost come to a terrible end for him in the final round. I remember watching that one. I'm glad that you said that, to be honest with you, because I think Lucas is, very underrated. He's probably an underachiever at this point in his career. He's got skills. I really think this is a great fight. What should fans expect? And obviously, you yourself, in terms of him as an actual boxer, you spoke there about not getting the opportunities and the rest of it, but what do you make of him and his skill set as well?
Obviously, if I tell you the God's honest truth, I ain't really watched too much of him. Like, I don't really like to watch my opponents because I remember before when I was at the iBox, I fought in the lockdown. I fought with a fella called Jamie Stewart, and he just got the draw with Marco. He was unbeaten, and so was I, obviously. And yeah, I remember watching him on YouTube, and I'm thinking, mate, this guy is shit. I'm gonna fucking smash him, you know what I mean? And then, obviously, I won the fight comfortably, but I didn't box at all well. So in my head, I thought I was gonna flatten him, and he's not like, do you know what I mean? I underestimated him, and then I thought, do you know what? I'm never doing that again. So I don't really like to watch my opponents, but obviously my team have watched him. They've told me that he's a bit tricky, you know what I mean? He's a bit of a mover. So, we'll see. I think this fight can only go one of two ways. He's either going to try and nick the fight and try and nick the rounds and be awkward and move and just try and nick a couple of shots and try and win the rounds that way, or he's going to try and stick it on me a little bit. But it is what it is. I'm prepared for both sort of styles, and I believe I can deal with both and get the win.
The size is definitely a factor that's on your side. I think that, skill for skill, I like the fight, but I feel like the size is definitely with you. I think you are going to be a bit too big for him, in all honesty, in my opinion.
Yeah. See, I know that he's fought at lightweight and light welter, and then obviously he boxed Casey at welter, but listen, it is what it is, isn't it? I don't know. I'm a big welter, you know what I mean? I'm a big boy for this weight, so I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I've got a horrible style for anyone at welterweight. Do you know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to getting in there with a good fighter, one who's obviously avoided, and then I get to show my levels. You know what I mean? So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, if my memory serves me right, and I hope I'm not making this up, I'm pretty sure at one point he was supposed to fight Archie Sharp years ago. Fight never ended up happening. But obviously, you're a lot bigger than Archie, so I was just thinking a bit like that.
We're weights above. Because I remember before when we was both at the iBox, I think Archie was telling me about him. Like, he's been hungry for an opportunity for years. You know what I mean? And obviously, I think he was calling Archie out because at the time Archie was the boy, wasn't he? And he was on. He was Frank Warren's fighter, and he was quite highly ranked for certain governing bodies and things like that. And I think Lucas just probably was trying to get his opportunity and get his chance on the big stage and was calling for that fight, but probably didn't make sense for Archie to fight him, you know what I mean, at that time. So that fight never came through. But that was a super featherweight, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I ain't been super featherweight that sort of weight for years, you know what I mean?
Yeah, since you was about 7. Yeah.
So obviously, I've definitely got the size advantage, but obviously that ain't. Hopefully, I don't think it just comes down to that. I feel like I'm just a better fighter. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, for
I
sure.
get to show that.
And a win here, Elliot. How many times would you like to be out again this year, ideally?
Well, I've actually signed the 3-fight deal with Boxer. You know what I mean? So this is my first one.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, this is my first fight, so obviously it'd be nice. So that's April. So if I can get out another one or another 2. Don't really know how it works. Obviously, I've signed a 3-fight deal in the year. So is it April to April, or is it 2025? I would like to be out again. Realistically, it's probably going to be looking like end of July, August. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Realistically, I don't know what's happening. If not, it'd be September again. Then probably I'd like to get out before Christmas. You know what I mean? But it all depends on what my team and what Boxer do, you know what I mean? So
yeah, you can't plan too far ahead.
No.
But yeah, knowing you, you'd like to be out twice more after this. Obviously, it's part of that Whittaker Cameron 2 undercard.
Yes.
Obviously, you've signed with Boxer now, like you just said. But What were your thoughts on the ending to their first fight? It was definitely controversial.
Yeah, obviously, to be honest, mate, I haven't watched the full fight, so I don't want to comment on the fight too much because I ain't even watched it. You know what I mean? I don't watch loads of boxing. Like since I've come to the Midlands, I've definitely got better at putting it on the TV and that. But I didn't watch that fight. I just saw I actually saw the clips on social media. You know, where they go over the ropes and that. Listen, from what I'm hearing, Ben started well, then looked like he was feeling the pace, and then obviously that happened, and people saying he's milked it or whatever, but it is what it is. Only Ben knows if he was injured or if he milked it. You know what I mean? Everyone can just say what they want, but only he knows the truth. So yeah, I think this time round, I feel like, do you know what? I feel like he needed that a little bit. You know what I mean? Just a little bit of humble pie. You know what I mean? Like, and now I feel like he's quietened down a little bit and he's back to a grafting, and I think I think he might get the job done this time.
Yeah, I mean, not many people were giving Liam Cameron a chance in the build-up, but obviously, as you say, it was a much tougher fight than he would have expected. And now the rematch, whether you like it or not, is 10 times bigger.
It's much better now. The rematch is massive. You know what I mean? It's
headlining now.
Headlining now, yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's massive. And to be honest, yeah, when that fight got made, I'm pretty sure. I think Liam Cameron boxed Lyndon Arthur, didn't he?
Yes.
And I watched that fight, and I was just, it was like a bit of a stalemate fight. Nothing really happened. I didn't really catch fire or nothing. And I thought, and that fight got made, and I thought, oh, let me have a little look on this guy on this BoxRec. And I looked on BoxRec, and then I went to his amateur, and he won the ABAs, you know.
Yeah, he's a good amateur.
Fucking won the ABAs, and he beat Dudley O'Shaughnessy, I think, twice. Then when I see that, I thought, fucking hell, that's a hard fight. Like, do you know what I mean? Even though I'd seen bits of the Lyndon Arthur fight, then yeah, when I see that he beat Dudley, and obviously we know Dudley from West Ham and that, and I fucking know what a fighter he was, and to win the ABAs back in them times as well, I thought, fuck, that's a good fight, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of people probably underestimated him, but when I see that, I thought, do you know what, he's a solid fighter. And then obviously he sort of proved it there in Riyadh, do you know what I mean? Or was it Riyadh? Yeah, it was Riyadh, wasn't it?
Yeah. All right then. Well, yeah. My final question for you before we let you go, Elliot. I'm asking everyone about this every week now, really. But Eubank Benn, April 26th. Yes. Who have you got and why? Try not to sit on the fence.
Yeah. No, I won't sit on the fence. To me, listen, it's a hard one. You know what I mean? Because since all that egg shit come out and the fucking drugs and that, really, like, I feel like anyone who gets done with drugs, doesn't matter how much money they bring into the sport or generate, they should get a ban. You know what I mean? Because I'm talking lifetime ban. Because if I got caught with anything like that, I don't generate the money yet, so I'm getting a lifetime ban. You know what I mean? Liam Cameron got a 4-year ban for fucking 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and then you're getting little slaps on the wrist. I'm not really getting. Obviously, he was out for a year, but when you look at it, he was lights out in people, do you know what I mean? At a certain time in a couple of rounds, Chris Algieri, Vargas, you know what I mean? Like, he was putting them asleep. There's these, I know they're probably past it, but they're solid fighters. And then since it's all come out and he had the other fights, I think they've all gone to the points, you know what I mean? So it's a bit dodgy. So I ain't really too keen on the fight. I think it depends what Chris Eubank turns up and I don't know, is Ben going to be strong enough? He's definitely got, I think Ben's got more of the advantage just because, like Chris said, I've seen on Instagram, like, Ben ain't fought at 147 in his last few fights, you know what I mean? He's been fighting at 154, so it's not like he's actually jumping up 2 weights, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think he's got actually the advantage coming up to middle. Over Chris, so it's an interesting fight. I think it depends on emotions, if he can control his emotions, Conor Benn that is, and just depends what fighter turns up. I think that's who's going to win. But it's a mad fight, isn't it? Fucking hell.
Elliot, you said you weren't going to sit on the fence, and you went and sat on it.
Yeah, I know, but I can't really pick a winner. Do you know what I mean?
You're all good. You're all good. You can. I
can't. You know what I mean? I can't really pick. Who do you think is going to win?
I've been riding with Eubank for many of the reasons you said, and just I think even though you're right, like for Eubank to come down to 160, it's not too ideal. A lot of people are looking at it like, that's going to favour him actually, and he's boxed the middle before, Conor hasn't. Yeah. But you make a good point actually there. His last few fights have been at 154. It looks like he's bulked up a bit as well.
Yeah, so I think he has got a bit of an advantage there over Chris. But then also, I feel like Chris has probably boxed at the higher level, ain't he? He's boxed better fighters. So that could play. It's all experience. I just think if Chris Eubank turns up, then I'd favour Chris. It just depends what Eubank turns up, doesn't it? So yeah, I'll probably lean towards Chris Eubank. But it is a good fight, and I mean it's a historic fight. So best of luck to both of them. They're gonna both earn a nice bit of dough as well for the family, aren't they? So
yeah, for sure they will.
That's what it comes down to.
That is where it comes down to. Just before we let you go, Elliot, if you've got any closing words to the listeners, like I say, last spoke to you in September, but it's always great having you on.
Yeah, well, obviously, listen, if you are listening in and you can't make the fight to Birmingham, then tune in on Sky Sports April 20th to watch me fight Lucas Ballingall. I think that fight can steal the show, with both two good fighters and both going to bring our best to win. So, yeah, get on that and shout out to my sponsors as well for all the support.
Well said, my friend. Listen, Elliot, I want to thank you for your time as always. Best of luck for April 20th. No problem whatsoever, and we'll speak after the fight for sure.
Definitely. Cheers, mate.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Just one fight to mention, and it goes down on June the 7th, which is a Saturday. It's going down at Ipswich Town FC's home stadium at Portman Road. This one's going to be live on DAZN. It's going to be live, and it's a Queensbury card. We have the bill topper, Fabio Wardley, stepping in with Jarrell Big Baby Miller for the interim WBA World Heavyweight title. It looks like Michael Hunter has been, or Kubrat Pulev has been ordered now to defend against Michael Hunter, so it seems like the WBA want the winner of that fight to fight the winner of this fight here against Wardley and Miller, and obviously they're boxing for the interim title. So it's going to be an interesting, an interesting year, it would appear, for the WBA heavyweight world title. Let's move then from the news part to the preview part. We're going to start here in Mexico at the Tarimbaro in Michoacan. Over here we have friend of the show, former world champion Carlos Molina, 40 wins, 15 losses and 2 draws. He's back in an 8-rounder here against Ricardo Kernas, who's 18-12 with a draw. This is Carlos Molina's home show. He is the promoter and he's also boxing in the main event. All the very best to him. We also have at the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, New Jersey, Eddie. This card here going down on Saturday night. Live on DAZN, Matchroom Boxing. On the undercard we have Shakram Giasov, 16-0, back in a 10-rounder here against Franco Ocampo, 17-2. We also have friend of the show, return to the ring for former world champion Raymond Ford. His record is currently 16-1 with a draw, back in the ring against Thomas Matisse, who is 22-4 with a draw. He's got 17 KOs from Ohio. Been in there with Eduardo Rocky Hernandez in his last fight. He lost in that fight there. That one was back in September. He also lost to Isaac Cruz by majority decision back in February of 2020. Aside from that, hasn't really beaten any big names. But yeah, he steps in with Raymond Ford here over 10 rounds. All the best to Raymond Ford. And then, of course, Eddie, all eyes to the main event for the IBF welterweight world title over 12 rounds, of course. The undefeated champion and friend of the show, Jaron Ennis, 33-0. And in the other corner, the undefeated 15-0 Lithuanian, Imantis Stanionis. It's a really interesting fight. I am seeing a lot of people on social media very, very, very much favouring Jaron Ennis massively. I think this is just quite an interesting fight. I really do, because obviously, in my opinion, Ennis has not looked great in his last few fights. There's rumours that he is struggling now to get down to 147, and a move to 154 appears to be imminent. Stanionis is a very, very good fighter, very good amateur, definitely the better amateur, and obviously hasn't really put a foot wrong as a pro. He's got a very, very good jab, very good ring IQ. And yeah, you know, he's coming off a good win last time against Gabriel Maestra. But yeah, this is obviously the biggest fight of his career. And as for Ennis, it's arguably the biggest fight of his career as well, to be honest with you, because he is boxing a guy who is pretty much in his prime as well, you'd have to say. So yeah, it's a good fight. It's a really, really interesting fight. And Stanionis to win the fight on points, by the way, is a massive price. I think I'm going to have to put something small on that anyway, just to be sure, because I think that you can't scroll past that. It's 15-2, aka 7.5-1, so $100 will return $850. I think that's a massive price for Stanionis on points. I don't think he would be able to stop Ennis, but I wouldn't want to bet against Ennis. But you know, I just think it's worth having a little go on that. I'm going to leave it to you, Eddie, because I'm sure you have more to add than me. But very, very good fight, and I'm genuinely looking forward to this, because it is one of the best fights that can be made at 147.
Yeah, agreed. Very dangerous fight, you know, but it's a championship fight, so that's par for the course in that. It should be a dangerous fight for Boots and Stanionis as well. But it's another test, and I kind of agree. No, I wholeheartedly agree that I don't want to say he didn't look good. I'm going to say certain aspects of what went on in those fights that he had recently, and I'm talking about Boots Ennis right now, hasn't been what you would think of what he was, you know, promised. You know what I mean? When you're looking at a guy who's supposed to be the heir apparent to the throne, you don't think that they're going to be flawed or as flawed at some of those areas like defensively, for example, and being concerned with only what you're landing and not what's coming back, and it being to your detriment. And, you know, people questioning because, you know, Boots was the boogeyman or is the boogeyman, and everybody, you know, is you got to be careful. Boots is one of those guys, and he is. I really believe he is. But his last performance and the one even, you know, prior to wasn't boogeyman, I guess, worthy, if you want to say that. Although I still know and feel that he is going to be, you know, one of the highest level champions we have. It still has to be proven. I don't care. Nobody is talking about potential no more, because now he's in a position, he's a champion. He's no longer even a contender. He's a championship level guy. He has to now prove and set himself apart from those who oppose. And if you don't, then, you know, people are going to question, and rightfully so. So his defensive flaws, his focus on, you know, doing the job, you know, even if it's not getting it done by knockout, still has to be okay. And to be honest, you know, the corner, you know, and I love Boots' pop. And, you know, I think he's, you know, one of the better guys in boxing. He's my man. But I think we got to think about what we're saying to our fighters too. I think we got to really pay attention to what we say, because what it does is it creates sometimes these unrealistic expectations that are, you know, coming from us. You know what I mean? When we're, you know, as trainers and as people that the fighters look to for information and you know, to what are we doing right and what are we doing wrong, to then when you go back to the corner, come on, man, you got to stop this guy. What are you waiting on? Just knock him out. It's not instruction on how to do it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that, he's not a good trainer. He's not a good cornerman. I think he's great at both things. But sometimes when you're so used to seeing greatness, sometimes you forget what it's like to have to, now you got to kind of not get it out the mud, but you got to still perform. You got to still, go out there and come up with the right plan. And sometimes it's like you having, a juggernaut on your team, and somehow they figure out how to kind of keep him contained. You got to find other ways to win. And in the case of Boots in the last fight that he had, he needed to just look good and dominate, whether it was by knockout or by decision. And I think in this fight, do not be concerned with the knockout. Be more concerned with how you perform. And I think that should be echoed to each, not just Boots, but to everyone in the corner. Be concerned about how important it is to win this fight, rather than how important it is just to look good or to, keep making that record look solid because you got knockouts on your record. You know what I mean? Look, knockouts and stuff like that will come. If they're there, take them. But if you're trying to force it, that's when things really start to fall apart. So yeah, if I'm going to say anything in this fight, be on the lookout for Stanionis, because he's not just a regular guy. This is going to be a very tough, difficult thing. He has a great amateur background, great IQ, great boxer. You know what I mean? He's not just going to go in there and lie down. So go in there right now. If I'm a supporter of Boots, I'm saying go in there and try to win by any means necessary.
All the best to Boots, Ennis. We're going to move on then to the next card. It goes down at the Huntington Center in Toledo, Ohio, USA. We have over here, friend of the show, Albert Bell, 26-0. Hasn't actually boxed for over a year now. 26-0, back in a 10-rounder against Josek Ruiz, who's 24-7 with 3 draws. All the very best there to Albert Bell. Another really good guy, another top friend of the show. And then finally, Eddie, and I'm coming to you for this one, my friend. It's going down Sunday, April 13th, at the Sumiyoshi Ward Center in Osaka, Japan. In the home corner, we have Kaito Yamasaki, 9-1. In the other corner, Eddie, in an 8-round contest at Super Bantamweight, we have 58-6 with a draw. Haven't said his name for a while. Wisaksal Wangek, a.k.a. Suresuket Sorung Vasai, a.k.a.
The Rat Eater.
I live for the moments that you say that on the show. All the very
Yes,
best.
sir.
All the very best to Wisaksal Wangek. It says he's the away fighter. He's obviously a Thai fighter. And he's boxing here in Japan against a Japanese fighter. So all the very best to him. I love it when he wins. I love it when he celebrates in a way that only he can. So yeah, that brings the preview part to a close. In part 1 we did the review part, then we welcomed our special guest, Mr. Elliot Whale. In part 2 we had the news, it was very brief, and then of course we did the preview part just there. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds time. Okay, and this wraps up episode 494 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive shout out to this week's special guest, the undefeated welterweight prospect, Mr. Elliot Whale. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in. That is about everything now from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we'll see you all again same time next week.